Hi, this is Frank with a Frank Opinion. I'm dedicating my video today to my father, a simple, incredibly hardworking man who is still to this day the most honest person I've ever met in my life. My title today, again, is Medicare for All, but it's personal to me, and it should be for you as well. I'd like to first recap my last 3 videos. So lots of studies have occurred since 1990, but there have been recent studies projecting a total annual cost. Dr. Gerald Friedman came up with a figure of $2,878 billion in analyzing the House bill by Pramila Jayabal. Perry, Political Economy Research Institute, also in 2018, arrived at an annual figure of $2,930 billion, and they were analyzing Senator Sanders' bill on the Senate side. The Lancet study, just a couple of months old, known as the Yale study, reviewed over 90 studies going back to 1990 and picked 22 from those for a more exhaustive study, research, and they came up with a need to implement Medicare for All of $3,034 billion. What I want you to notice here is how close these 3 independent studies are to implement, in terms of their conclusion, to implement Medicare for All, the annual cost. The 4th study that might be included in here, which is the smallest in terms of number of pages, is the Mercatus Institute, which is a conservative think tank, and they came up with a cost of $32 trillion over 10 years, or if we had it here, $3,200 billion. Still, way below the annual cost that's projected for this year, which will come in at around 3.6 trillion, and still leave millions of Americans uninsured, and especially with the coronavirus, and millions of Americans underinsured. And the numbers of people going on unemployment, losing their employer-based health insurance, is in the tens of thousands, if not more, every day. Again, Medicare for All is comprehensive without including deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance, and premiums, other than the health tax that I'm going to indicate on the next page. All in, you will see on the next page, is a savings for individuals, families, businesses, corporations, and state and local governments. Everybody wins in a Medicare for All system. After maintaining federal and state dollars towards health care in the United States, that's federal, state, etc., which comes out to more or less $2+ trillion that we're already spending in terms of government dollars. The rest is your private dollars, money coming out of your pocket, again, in terms of those premiums and co-pays and so forth and so on. Friedman came up with an additional revenue that we would need on an annual basis of $872 billion. Perry, Political Economy Research Institute, $1,050 billion more. And Lancet, and the reason why there's an asterisk here, is that I want you to focus on this figure. It's the newest study, 2020, is when they came out with their paper, and they concluded that, again, factoring in maintaining federal and state dollars, that we would need $773 billion. And that's after the savings that would be achieved through an implementation of Medicare for All. The administrative waste on the insurance side, both in terms of provider dealing with insurance companies and the insurance personnel themselves, savings on being able to negotiate pharmaceutical prices, and savings on provider costs themselves, the big one being hospitalization. Sanders came out with an options for financing Medicare for All about 3.5 years ago. It says, as I've indicated before in previous videos, about 10 to 12 different funding options, but the 2 main ones were a 7.5 employer payroll tax, which would be assessed in terms of government and private concerns. And that would be after excluding the first 2 million in payroll. The Sanders paper said that that would net about $390 billion annually. The second one was a 4% employee tax on net income. That is income, your household income. After taking your standard deduction, apply 4% of that, and you would be all in. I'd ask all of you to do that mathematically. What's your household income? Times 4% after you take your standard deduction. And that paper said that it would generate 350 billion. So if we add the 390 billion, 350 billion, you come up to 740 billion. And that is very close to the Lancet, the newest study's conclusion that we would need $773 billion more. So a little paprika, a little oregano on the side in the form of a tax on stock options or raising the capital gains rate, and we get to actually any one of the projections, including the Mercatus, of how much it would cost to implement Medicare for all. And what would be achieved in that is no longer with Americans have to rely on employer-based, which is really the most high-risk insurance that you could get on the health insurance side. Okay, it would be you would be guaranteeing your own health insurance through those first two tax schemes, as well as anything else that any other options to come up with, whatever shortfall there might be. It would be your insurance. Instead of being a cash cow for private insurance companies and to fund the exorbitant, perverted CEO pay that they get. In one of my last videos, I said there's been a lot of bad actors historically over the last number of years. One of them, Newt Gingrich, 1994, he decided to go on a crusade to make Americans despise government in order for him to take over the House of Representatives on the Republican side. He became the Speaker. Didn't last long because of his private scandals. But the second one is Grover Norquist, who established Americans for Tax Reform. Also Republican, also decided that let us make Americans hate the word tax, make fun of it. The last thing you want to do is give money to the government. Well, of course, because you've already begun to hate government because of this SOB. This SOB made you, double whammy here, a little perfecta, decided that he wanted to make Americans hate the word tax. Bad news, because taxes binds us as a society. And tax, if you were funding it in the right way, like other countries did, would be coming back to you in terms of public benefit. And in this case, health care for you and your family, from birth to death, guaranteed, saving you tons of money. So, I mentioned that I was devoting this to my father. He was an incredibly honest person. And when he knew of somebody or met somebody that he didn't think was ethical, honest, true blue, informing you in the right way, giving you facts, not crap, what would he say about that person? He's no good. Or she's no good. Most of the time it was a he. He's no good. And I'm asking you now, as I've asked myself for years now in terms of my own congressperson, in New York CD3, look him up, the congressman for New York's Congressional District 3, who has been misinforming, misrepresenting, not doing his homework, making a sham of his 5 minutes performance as part of the Tax and Ways Committee meeting on health care. Unbelievable, okay? My father would look at that gentleman and say, he's no good. And that's why we have to get rid of congresspeople that are no good, dishonest, and replace them with better people, better Democrats, essentially, and hopefully doing that will give us a chance to undo the path that we've taken over the last number of years. Thanks.